I'm always on the move. What you know about it? I always keep my hips in the groove. I do what I choose. To the top like Rocky. Motivated, I can't lose. Look at these views. Kicking back like Becky. I ain't got nothing here to prove. Leaving them clues. You know where to find me.
Before we get started on the contents of today's episode, I just wanted to briefly touch on an organization that is near and dear to my heart. It's a local nonprofit called Lead with Horses. It provides equine-based therapies to children and adults alike for emotional, physical, and trauma-based programs. And in a time where it's a huge mental health crisis going on in the world, it's a great organization, and I just want to bring light to that. They are having their annual event on July 26th. They are selling tickets on their website. It's leadwithhorses.org, and anyone and everybody is welcome to join, and I encourage you to support this great organization.
And I second that. And everyone knows that with nonprofits, fundraisers are huge. So please, please check it out. If you can't buy a ticket and attend, donate some money. I think they're going to be having an auction, right? You can do a gift. Businesses, you can even do that and promote a little bit. Anyways, didn't mean to jump in there, but fundraisers are just so important. And so,
and if you can't make the event, they also have options for you to sponsor animals. There's horses, there's mini ponies, there's donkeys. We actually sponsor a donkey. His name is Walter. My daughter is obsessed with him. She calls him Honk. But yes, we just encourage you to get out and support the local organizations here and help them give back to you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so last time we talked about topics that we would cover in our episodes. And what did we decide?
Well, there's lots to cover, and there's lots going on in the news every day. What we've decided is that for this episode, we're going to cover the Diddy trial. There is a lot of news, and I'm trying not to bust in with what's going on, but I do want to just say that Kilmar Obrego Garcia is on his way back from El Salvador, which is amazing, and it just goes to show what we all knew, that they could get him back. So anyways, there's so much more other news, but that just really hit me, and I thought it was amazing, so just wanted to, put that out there. But today's episode will be about the Diddy trial, and it's a lot. There is a lot. So you're going to have to bear with us. This may be like a 1, 2, 3-parter. The trial's not over. And we also want to start by saying these are just our opinions. We are getting information from the public information that's out there. And as always, Diddy is innocent unless proven guilty. So we're just reporting what's out there right now, and we're going to see what happens. So
yes, and we encourage you to make your own interpretations of the things that are presented. And Diddy still has his innocence until the jury decides what they believe based on the evidence that's presented. And there's still several weeks to go. So from there, I guess we'll just get started.
Well, let's talk about what are the charges?
Okay,
let's start there. Why is he even in trial?
Okay, so just brief overview is, Sean Combs, aka Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him, he's in federal criminal trial right now in the Southern District of New York. He's facing federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, 2 charges of sex trafficking.
By force, fraud, or coercion.
Yep, and then 2 charges of transportation for the purpose of prostitution. And so if he is convicted on all of these charges, he has the possibility of serving life in federal prison.
Well, 2 of them are life, and then the prostitution is a max of 10 years.
Yeah.
So if he's convicted on all, although probably we'll do an episode on Trump's pardon on him, because we all know that he pardons criminals. So that'll be coming. Not that he's a criminal yet; he's still innocent, but anyways.
So
stay tuned.
Yeah, the basic foundation of the facts that the prosecution is alleging is that he sex trafficked 3 women. He controlled them using physical and emotional abuse. He supplied them with narcotics to keep them compliant, and they would engage in sexcapades, pretty much with sex workers. Yes. freak-offs is what they are called. They were elaborately planned and staged, and they would be videotaped, and they
would last for days sometimes.
Yes.
So we'll get into details a little bit, but crazy stuff.
He's also facing dozens of civil lawsuits, which all started from when Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend, filed a lawsuit against him, which was settled for
the next day. The next day. But and it should be, or I'd just like to point out that some of the civil lawsuits were prior, but some of them have come out afterwards. Yeah. And there's a different burden of proof. So in criminal, they have to prove that he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest burden. It's very hard to meet. Whereas civil, is it preponderance? I don't even know.
Yeah,
probably have known that before I did this.
Just like, it has to be, here's your 50%.
More likely than not.
Yes, it's like, here's your 50%. You just have to get to like 51% of like, oh yeah, that's like, it happened. But when you're looking at criminal, it's like, you have no reasonable doubt. You don't have anything that makes you think maybe he didn't do it. You are for sure.
But the preponderance is like the lowest burden, and it's more likely than not. Yeah, he probably did that. Well, that's enough.
Yeah, that's civil.
Not in criminal.
Yeah, not in criminal. Because your freedom is, it's a constitutional right. So they take it very, very seriously. So when we're going through the elements of each crime, so what we think, I'm going to go through what the elements are, and then we'll just see what has come out so far and if it fits the bill. Okay. So what's come out?
Okay, you go through the elements. I've got a lot of the facts and the witnesses, so maybe we can kind of piece it together.
Okay, so we can start with racketeering, which is also bases itself off of the other crimes. So racketeering the elements are: an enterprise existed. So this is like a company or a group of individuals associated in fact to conduct illegal activities. The enterprise affected interstate commerce. So that means that it went between states or internationally, and that the defendant was associated with or employed by the enterprise, and the defendant engaged in a pattern of the racketeering activity. So that means there has to be more than one. It has to be that the defendant has committed at least 2 predicate offenses within a specific time frame that's connected to the illegal goals of the enterprise. And so in this case, their racketeering criminal activity that they're doing that's affecting interstate commerce is going to be
alleged to affect interstate commerce.
It's going to be sex trafficking and the transportation for the purpose of prostitution.
They have a separate charge with prostitution too, though. But I guess they can use that as one of the elements for.
Yeah, because they have to have the criminal offenses that are being committed by the business that are going across interstate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the criminal activities that are taking place that are bringing it to racketeering is the sex trafficking and the transportation for purpose of prostitution. The elements of your sex trafficking is going to be recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, soliciting, and or patronizing a person for the purpose of commercial sex work induced by force, fraud, or coercion. Then we get to the transportation to engage in prostitution. The elements are knowingly transported an individual in interstate and or foreign commerce with the intent that the individual engage in prostitution and attempted, impeded, and embedded and willfully caused the same.
So you're going to put that in the middle so that I can refer to those elements.
Okay, well, let's go through.
So this is what the prosecution has to prove.
Yes.
It is not Diddy's burden to prove himself innocent. This is the prosecution, the state, the government. They have to prove that these elements, that he committed them and that he's guilty of them.
So I think maybe we just start with one offense and see what information has come out so far and does it fit the bill?
And quickly, so you know both sides, the defense is saying that you may not like his behavior, that he's been violent at times, but as they put it in their opening statement, he's not being charged for being mean, which you can judge, and we will discuss if his actions are just mean. And that basically he's being, the accusers are just motivated by money, and that he, was kind of a mean guy, liked kinky sex, but it's not a crime, and they just want money. So that's what they're saying for their defense.
Oh, and by the way, these are just notes that
Because there's a lot.
Monica and I took prior to this. And so we didn't speak to each other about this before we came in here. So that way there's two different perspectives of what's going on. And so when we're looking at these, they're just our own notes of the things that we've written down. So, okay. So should we start with sex trafficking and then what's come out about it so
we can
far?
put that in the middle, seriously, so I can look at the, look at the elements too. I'm a visual. I need to read.
Well, actually, here, let me pull up the criminal in the complaint, and then because my notes are on here.
Okay.
Okay. So, racketeering conspiracy. Okay, here is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, right here.
Okay. Let's take a little sip of water.
All right. So, what kind of things do you know that have come out so far about sex trafficking?
Well, let's see what they're alleging in the complaint, and then we can kind of match that up with the testimony and the evidence. Okay.
So they go through it a little bit at the beginning, and I can kind of give you a synopsis of what they say.
Yeah.
So in the complaint, they are saying that Diddy operated his business that was headquartered in Manhattan and sometimes in Los Angeles. It would be under like Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprise. And so he engaged in persistent and persuasive patterns of abuse towards women and other individuals. And he forced them to participate, or he manipulated them to participate in sexual acts.
As part of his business?
Yes, like he would use his employees to do it. And that's what makes the enterprise part.
Okay, I was going to say, it sounds just like, not that I'm like siding with his defense, because some of this stuff is horrific that we've heard the testimony of, and I don't condone any of it, but I was like, if he does this on his own, is he really like...
So this is where they get...
employees. Okay,
yes. So this is where they get it, is they say that... Diddy and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and male sex workers to engage in freak-offs. And so he would do this by providing narcotics, controlling their careers, financial exploitation.
Paying for their whole lifestyles, their rent, their lifestyles. So, I mean, when that gets, pulled out from under them, that was part of the control, because he's saying it was consensual, but, if there's a power dynamic that's not equal, then that can,
Yeah.
So anyways.
I think that's where they're trying to get the coercion, is that like, they may have, some of these women may come out and say that like, yes, I like verbally said yes, but it was because if I didn't, he was going to do X, Y, Z.
Or they said no, but then he's like,
if you don't.
Yeah, or like whatever, and then they feel obligated, and then it said, see, now they're consenting. Another thing, though, is that he liked to film it, and he liked to hold it over people's head, and he threatened to release these and ruin, like Cassie, for instance, which is his girlfriend, and we'll get into that, ex-girlfriend now, obviously, ruin their career. So,
yeah.
That was another element to it. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. And then, so the prosecution is also alleging that he committed physical abuse from at least 2009 for several continuing years against women by hitting them, punching them, dragging them, throwing objects, choking, and kicking them. And it has also been witnessed by others. And this is where he gets the enterprise part, or where the prosecution gets the enterprise part, is that he used his business, including his employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up the abuse and the commercial sex. So he would use his like security, his personal assistants, and people who like worked for him to pay the prostitutes, pick up drugs, set up the hotel rooms, to threaten people, invade their homes.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of testimony here from his assistant, David James. He said he alleges that he would always carry a Louis Vuitton bag with $10,000 cash in it, so that he always had money to, probably 20 or 30 different pill bottles. Always. This was always.
Would you say that giving somebody drugs that they are willfully taking would fall into coercion, because you're giving them the drugs, but they want to use them?
Do they? So maybe, but we have to see, it as a whole, because it also goes with that coercion of not wanting to engage in the sex act. Well, maybe they didn't want to do the drugs either, but they just kind of went hand in hand. And so, I mean, but I also think it was a party atmosphere. So I think some of that may have been consensual, but I feel like at some point, especially when it goes on for days and he's not really engaging as much as they are, he's more watching. You know, at what point is it not consensual anymore? Or if it is at all. So that's kind of what the trial is going to determine, or the evidence that's going to be presented in the jury will decide. However, it is alleged that there's so many baby oil bottles. Like, that was just nuts. But it's alleged that he put GHB in them, and that's why they had to continually, put it on them so that it would be absorbed through their skin. And if they didn't know it was in there, then that's absolutely not consensual. So
yeah, I think that I don't know for sure.
Or not
this
voluntarily.
is just but I think I saw that was in a civil lawsuit. But I just can't confirm that if that was brought up in this criminal trial at all. So I don't know. Like, maybe they don't know for
maybe
sure.
don't know. It's not over yet, so we can still have more. But if they can prove that, it should be their criminal. So we'll see. Anyways, I just have to say, this is what his personal assistant said, that he was known to take ecstasy pills marked with former President Obama's face on it. I don't know what that's about, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So Obama, in case you didn't know, there's ecstasy floating out there with your face on it. Or there was at one time.
Interesting.
So interesting, huh?
Okay, and so then the rest of the things that they're alleging is that Diddy used his business, that it was mainly for entertainment, TV networking, as media company, record labels, things like that. He used his business and employees to effectuate his crimes and fulfilling his sexual desires. And so that's pretty much how they are tying it all together to the racketeering. And they're saying that the threat, coercion, that it's from his intimidation, him threatening and luring the women into his orbit.
Well, and his employees as well, because I just have to jump in again with David James. His testimony was so interesting. He stated that when he went for his job interview, he met with the vice president of human resources, and they were sitting at her desk, and there was a picture of Diddy on the wall. And, let me see exactly what it said. She pointed at it and said, "This is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve in it." I think that's pretty powerful of what kind of the culture was there and what kind of control he exerted. And I believe it was the same one, don't quote me on it, that it may not have been him, but he, or it was in the opening statement that he viewed himself as a king and he expected people to treat him that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So.
So that kind of goes to the whole, it ties it in with the employees, the culture, and that's what,
So.
But I mean, then again, I guess I didn't have to work there.
Then it gets you to the question of, does Cassie fall into somebody who was sex trafficked when she was in a relationship with this man for a decade? Is that sex trafficking?
What's the
so
elements?
then recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, soliciting a person for the purpose of commercial sex.
Sounds like she did it. He told her. She was one of the ones, I think, that would that was Jane.
No, she called somebody.
I think a lot of them did, but Jane Doe, there's two. There's three victims that were testifying. Cassie, one former assistant who only wanted to be identified by the pseudonym Mia, and then a third one who wanted to be identified by the pseudonym Jane Doe. And Jane Doe said that, or maybe it was Cassie, but that she was directed to, I had it, let me see right here. They called them hotel nights. And it was basically at one point, he had her get sex workers from Atlanta to move them to come to a freak off or a hotel night in New York. And so I guess what I'm saying is that he didn't actually do it. But I understand what they're saying because it's under RICO too. So he's the head of this, but he has other people do it. I mean, that's kind of how the mob operates. Not saying he's in the mob, but you know what I mean?
And I think that's how they get, they tie everything together is through the racketeering charge, is because it was an enterprise that he led and was having the employees that worked for his enterprise do these things.
And his girlfriends.
Yes.
Yeah.
To, fulfill his weird sexual fantasies of watching his significant other have sex with prostitutes, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cuck. That's what the term is.
That's a cuck.
Yeah, that's the term. Men who like to watch other men have sex with their wives or their partner. They weren't married. So that's truly the term. He was a cuck. Anyways.
Okay. So
we're here to educate.
I know. I was like, is this an appropriate topic when I was like writing my notes?
It's the Diddy trial, so I don't think we can do this PG.
Yeah, because my first things that I have on here is a sex worker is like Diddy watched and
masturbated.
Yes, pleasured
Just
himself
say it, girl.
while watching Cassie have sex. And so,
but that's one thing I should point out is that when you're in a court of law and evidence, you say what it is.
Yeah.
You don't try to get around it. And I mean, you can soften some things, but maybe in argument, but when it comes down to the evidence, people testifying, we need to hear what it was. So you use the word. So we're going to use it here too.
So does she fall within sex trafficking? I think that there is an argument that she was coerced into engaging in these sexual acts for that was commercial in sense, because he's threatening for money to be paid to him for certain things. He's paying somebody else. So the other person engaging is getting paid. So I think that you can tie it all together if the jury finds that she is convincing in the fact that he had complete control over her through his power over her career.
Part of it was the videos. He threatened her and he would show them to her, see this, I'll release this. He made her career, and he was basically saying, I can ruin you too. And that to her,
that's coercion for sure.
Yeah, and that was, from what I understand, her biggest fear of why she didn't, speak out earlier.
And I think her mom,
who would want that out there?
I know.
So I don't blame her.
And I think her mom actually testified that she got an email from Cassie that said that he was threatening to release 2 sex tapes of them, of her, actually. And he wanted $20,000, which, to Diddy, that's nothing. Nothing.
And they took out a loan on their home.
Allegedly, he gave the money back after
I didn't hear that
received
part,
it. Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's a lot. It's hard to catch up on this.
And so, and then I don't know. So there's definitely coercion, in the sense of that. I think the only thing is going to be did they recruit her in that sense of to get her engaged for this? And I think that what the prosecution is trying to say and what they put in their indictment complaint was that he would lure in these women into his orbit because he has all of this power. He would say we're going to be in a romantic relationship, we're together, blah, blah, blah. But once he got them hooked, it was okay, you're going to do this for me, or I'm going to destroy you.
He love bombs them.
Yes.
Big time. And you have to remember that I believe the age difference between him and Cassie was 17 years. So there's a, younger women when you're being love bombed by this famous, successful man who's going to make you successful. You get sucked into that. And as you were saying, once you're sucked in, it's hard to, especially when then he has stuff to use against you.
And, and that, that happens in real life all of the time, not in a sense of, okay, a Diddy, for example, but it's you can find a man and he can be promising you this life. He has all of this money and he spoils you and does all of these great things for 6 months, a year, or whatever it is. And then once he has you and you're now dependent on him for something, you're now going to experience some sort of, abuse. It may not be sexual this, but in a, it could be physical,
control of money, it could be physical, it could be, and just, putting your self-esteem down so that you think that you're not good enough for anybody else but this person. So it's all different forms.
And it's more common than you would think. This happens to women all of the time.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it in family law. And then, of course, I'm on the board of Safe Embrace. And so that is what we do is, help people escape domestic violence and sexual violence. It's very common. There are resources in this town, but not enough. So it's extremely common.
And, and that goes to another point that I wanted to make sure that I conveyed was that if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
if you hear your neighbors fighting and you hear something bang, it's better to call the police.
And just be,
right?
like, because there used to be, especially like way back in the 60s, we're talking like, it's not my business. You know what? Make it your business, because as a society, we need to take care of each other. And if you're hearing someone being abused and you know it's not right, that is what law enforcement is for. So I agree. Save someone, help them when they can't help themselves. Because you never know when children are there too, and they are the real victims, because they have no say in it. So
and they can't do anything for themselves either.
No.
And
so
yeah.
I think that's a really great point. Is like, just be vocal, be vigilant if you see something.
Especially for women. And I'm not saying that men can't be victims of abuse in this way, because they can.
Absolutely. But
predominantly it happens to women, and women, I think of the statistics is like 9 times out of 10 when a woman is killed, she is killed by her romantic partner. So if you see something, you hear something, it is better to let somebody know, because you could save that person's life.
For real. If not that day, then down the line.
But
here's the thing too, I must add, is that a lot of domestic violence is, I think, what is it, like the statistic is like 9 times it takes to leave. So they may go back. That doesn't mean you shouldn't call the police again. Like, oh, well, they must want it, or they're not taking care of themselves. Why should I care? It's a whole, battered wife syndrome. There's like a lot of psychological elements involved. So, and keep calling the police, because also making that record, because we see this in family law when people come in and all these things happen. There were no witnesses. Nobody ever called the police,
or when there was witnesses and it was family, nobody said anything. Nobody called the police, but it's just a bunch of he said, she said, and that's not going to do anything for you. So,
because that does have to be, so we talked about the burdens of proof. We have beyond a reasonable doubt and preponderance, but when it comes to domestic violence and family law, it's clear and convincing, which is a heightened standard. It's like in the middle. So it has to be crystal clear that this happened, and it has to convince the judge. And if you have 2 people saying 2 different things, that's not convincing, and it's certainly not clear. So anyways.
Okay, so back to this. What was the most interesting thing that you heard out of like all of your research?
That on the very first day, Diddy was reading a Bible when the trial started, and when the prosecution was doing their opening statement. Okay, first of all, so we all saw that video from 2016 that he tried to bury and all of that. So we kind of all have seen this in the media, and so we know. And then he did an apology video after, he denied that video that came out about the hotel. But then later when, I don't know what year or how long after, but he came out and said he had hit rock bottom, and that it was inexcusable. So I feel like there's some sort of admission there. I don't know. But he's not like vehemently saying he's innocent, but just come on. He's bad boy. Like, he's reading a Bible. Like, I'm not saying he's not religious, but come on, it was clearly theatric.
I think that goes to show his manipulation, because it was intentional, right? He's doing that to manipulate the jury.
Well, matter of fact, yesterday the judge warned him that I guess he was aggressively nodding and making eye contact with the jurors during a witness's testimony. And the judge told him, I will remove you from the courtroom if you continue to do that. So I think like you said, little glimpses of his manipulation are showing through.
Yeah. And I watched...
The Bible killed me, though.
I know.
Come on.
I watch another podcaster, and her name is Stephanie Sue. It's called Rotten Mango. And she is actually there as a media person. And she has said that he makes eye contact with the journalist. He goes, "Hey, how you doing?" And so, he's trying to make connections with everybody in the room. And it just and the way that
abusers do that. I'm the good guy. Love me. And I didn't do these things they're saying.
And she said,
so that fits.
Yeah. And she said it was so strange. It wasn't like that he was putting on a show, but that is it
wasn't genuine.
Yeah.
That's what
that it was legitimately that's who he is. He's theatrical, oh, hey, love me. I'm so great. I want to make a connection with you.
So he was genuinely disingenuous.
Yes. Yes. He's just trying to make everybody like him.
Yeah.
And that's just like what he does. That's just who he is.
And, you know, before all of this came to light, that he was very, you know, charismatic and he was very beloved. And he was this media, or maybe not media mogul, but like, you know, mogul. And everybody thought he was this great guy that, you know, was.
Yeah. Speaking of, there was actually a woman who, who like just.
These motherfuckers are laughing at you. Sorry, that's what she said. And they kicked her out.
She disrupted the trial and was.
I think it was
like,
yesterday.
Yeah. That they're all making fun of you and all of this stuff. And apparently, when they got close to her,
it's like, hello, do you live in America? This is what we do.
Yeah, she was like, she had said like, pull out your guns or something like crazy, and that's when the judge had came on and was just like, get her out of here. Yeah.
Well, motherfuckers usually would have been like, okay, she's gone.
Yeah.
Pull out your guns.
Yeah. And she did interviews after she was removed, and she was saying things like, you know, they're just trying to ruin a black man's legacy, black man's excellence, and it's like, for one point, it's like, when you're talking
that's a legitimate argument, but not here.
Right.
That makes me mad, because when you utilize legitimate arguments in a situation that is not applicable to, it dilutes the argument for everybody, and that actually pisses me off.
Yeah, to undermine.
I don't think they're trying. Although I will say that I do get that a little bit, because look at like Bob Kraft with that whole sex thing down in Florida years ago, where the massage parlor, and it came out and he was arrested. Then it was like warrantless search, all went away. But he's a white dude, old white dude with money. Nothing happened to him. We all know about, you know, the orange one. And there's none of these white men. Epstein's dead, and he was in jail for a little bit. But I've always thought it was so insane that the two people who are going down for sex trafficking are Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman, and the black man. So she does have maybe a little bit legitimate and legitimacy to that argument.
Kelly? R. Kelly?
Yeah, he's just a freak.
Yeah. Yeah.
No excuse for R. Kelly. They're not trying to keep down a black man. He's just a freak, and he just really abused underage.
Yes.
Well, let's call them children. They're children. Yeah. So.
And so, like, I can see like a glimpse of that. However,
he probably would have enjoyed the freak off. Sorry.
Who's to say he wasn't involved? But anyway,
maybe he's jealous. I'm gonna outdo it. I'm gonna do my own. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But so that makes me like, so yes, maybe she has like a legitimate perspective of like, why are all of these white men getting away with this, but he's not. However, you also have to think about the fact that a lot of these victims are women of color. So it's like, are you undermining them being victims?
Interesting. Yeah. Why isn't she mentioning that? That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. So it's just because he's a black man. Well, what about the black woman that's there?
Yeah.
What about her? What about the suffering that she went through?
Black women are even lower on the social totem pole. I mean, it's. Yeah. I'm not making any like, you know.
It's just how society is operating.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to work to correct it, but you know. Yeah. So that's a great point, actually. And about these women.
I know.
Yeah.
And you know what the best thing about all of this is Cassie's husband would stare down Diddy while Cassie is testifying.
8 months pregnant.
Stare him down like
good.
And I was like, you know, that is a man that loves his wife.
Yeah, probably took everything he could not to.
Oh yeah. And he stood by her every second that she was on the stand. He is just, you know, whenever it's like she's talking about anything, he's, you know, eyes direct, focused on her. But then when it talks about the abuse, it's just like, you know, piercing a hole into the back of Diddy's skull. And that is a man that loves his wife.
Because you know he's heard way more than what she's testifying to.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows
because she can only respond to what they're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows the nitty-gritty. He knows all of it and what kind of pain that has caused her. So yeah, good for him for supporting her and being a good man.
I know.
Good.
So
good man.
back to coercion really quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
We got off topic.
We're talking about coercion over like her career and finances, but then we go to the drug use. Okay, so if they're willingly taking it, and I took note that Cassie testified that she struggled with addiction, and so did Diddy. So it's like, does that make her? It's not coercion because she was a willful participant in the drugs.
But that's not the only part of it, right? The drugs?
No. But I mean, she would, I think she testified that she would get so high to make it where she's kind of like
numbed
out of her
out.
body.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. To me, I think, well, we're talking about coercion.
Or force.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think only the career and the blackmail would fall into the force part for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so transporting for prostitution. What did you hear about that? I don't have much on that, and so I'm kind of like, I don't know.
And I feel bad because I'm an attorney and I didn't even look up the law that much. So I was more like into the testimony. So you're putting it all together for me. However, I did. I mean, there was so much, you guys. There was so many. I mean, we're like what 3-4 weeks in. We still got a week or two.
Yeah.
So it's been really hard to go and like sift through this, but I did. Let me see. I have it in here somewhere about some testimony regarding.
Oh, you know what? I think you said something. Somebody testified that they brought sex workers from Atlanta to New York.
And I have it in here.
So that would be
this is too many notes.
Interstate.
I have a problem with that. I make too many notes and I can't find stuff.
Oh, same. It's 10 pages long.
Right. So you talk for a minute and I'll find it.
Okay. So. One of the biggest things, like the most interesting thing that I think I heard was, let me see. Where was it? 1 second. Temporary break in this message. Oh my gosh, I know what it is. When Kid Cudi testified, I found that so interesting because Kid Cudi was briefly in a relationship with Cassie and was getting like threats from Diddy and ultimately ended the relationship because he felt like it was unsafe for him to remain in a relationship with her. And allegedly Diddy had broken into his house and set his car on fire. And then an assistant named Capricorn.
Yes.
Capricorn Clark came out and testified and said that she was involved in the home invasion of Cudi. And
Crazy.
I guess like when Cudi first accused Diddy of it, he denied any involvement, but then several years later he apologized for it. So I just found that crazy that like because there was like somebody else involved in Cassie's life that he was going to break into his home and set his Porsche on fire.
Like, what is wrong with this dude? Why is he so broken?
I don't know.
I mean, he's not guilty yet, but like, I don't know. I don't think all these people are lying.
I mean, the people that even like worked for him, because Capricorn,
he had everything
Clark,
in the world. Like what? And he even grew up like with, more
a good life.
Like he was privileged growing up. So I just don't understand where this comes from. But.
I think when I
but we all have our own trauma. I mean, I can't judge on that.
When I try to understand it, I think that like he just has a kink for power and it just like gets him off. He has power over everybody.
And I also heard that his father, I think, died when he was young and he was portrayed kind of in this way, like very powerful and I don't want to use the word thug, but kind of like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so he kind of tried.
He's the OG.
Yeah. And I think he was trying, I don't know if he was trying to like,
emulate his father?
Yeah, well, that or just trying to get, what's the word I'm looking for? Like get close to him or somehow feel like a connection with him because he didn't really know him. And so, I mean, and then maybe just got out of control. He was very rich, powerful, could do whatever he wanted, hung out with powerful people. That's intoxicating. Yeah. I can imagine when everybody says yes to you, how that can get crazy out of control. I'm not saying like violent and all of this is okay, but anyways.
Another interesting thing that I just remembered is that a prosecution witness went on. It was a sex worker that went by the Punisher.
Yes, I have that in here too.
And his testimony actually ends up like helping the defense, in my opinion, because he said that like it didn't seem like Cassie was under the influence and it didn't seem like Diddy was under the influence. And it came across that Cassie enjoyed it.
Okay, so he's saying she was 100% sober?
He said it didn't seem like she was intoxicated.
Okay, well, maybe she had a high tolerance. Okay, and also maybe he's a little skewed because of
his work?
Yeah, his environment that he's always in. But so enjoyed it. Okay,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think like at a certain extent.
Why can't I find this?
Like she may have enjoyed it for a period of time, you know?
Who knows? I don't
know.
think it's like overall it was, she felt disgusted with this whole thing, but maybe there were moments of excitement and exhilaration. Like, I don't judge anybody. Like, do you, whatever. But I think as a whole and overall, it wasn't that. So maybe in the moment that he saw them, she was, and that's just his opinion. You know, maybe she was putting on an act too, because I don't know, maybe Diddy would, you know, when your abuser's telling you to do something, you do it with a smile.
Yeah.
You know?
So Diddy's like defense is arguing that this is like, they're admitting straight up that this is domestic violence, but it's not sex trafficking.
Right.
And in a sense, I am like following it a bit. And it's not like, I don't know. So I think right now, I think the prosecution does, in my mind, has a little bit of a harder burden, and they've got more to prove to me that this was sex trafficking, because when we hear Cassie testify, we hear, you know, the Punisher testify and Diddy's most recent girlfriend testify. They have said that they were willing participants, right? So it's like, at first they were willing participants, and then they kept doing it to please him or because they didn't want to get blackmailed, right? Like, it comes in later on. However, like, right now, it sounds like consensual sex that just evolved into something, and he, you know, committed domestic violence. And so I think they're going to have for me, they're going to have a harder time to convict him on sex trafficking.
I think so too.
And then, so the transportation for prostitution, I've heard of one, right? However, the crime itself, the elements require, I think it's two acts for racketeering. For the racketeering conspiracy, it requires 2 acts. And so from my own recollection, I've only heard one. And so they have to present one more act of him transporting somebody interstate.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find, it's in here somewhere, but I know that they had hired sex workers from Atlanta to go to New York.
But that gives us one.
That's one, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so,
I mean, they're not done yet. And I must say that I was listening a little bit verbatim of the questioning, and I don't think the prosecutors were doing a very good job. I was confused at some points, and I thought, oh, they must be shortening this, you know, just for bite-sized pieces. But like, for instance, the woman that alleged that he dangled her, she's like 115 pounds, and dangled her over a 17-story thing. But it goes to the whole thing is that if they're not putting this together well. But basically, they're like, what's your name? What do you do? What did Diddy do to you? And it's like, whoa. Yeah. Does she know him? Like, how does she know him? Like, can we get a little more info here? And it was just, and they would just skip around. And sometimes the defense would say, lack of foundation. And I thought, well, you should probably do that a little bit more. But maybe they were just like, let him go with it. It honestly came off as confusing to me. Because I looked at several sources and it was verbatim, like, oh, they're not paring this down for us.
They're not questioning correctly. So they're opening the door for an appeal.
Well, and I guess what my point is that if they're not doing a good job at that, then the whole case, like if they, I mean, I hope they can show the second, because that's an element and they should at least know that.
I mean, I think they know that, but I think right now, where they are in trial, it's up in the air for me. So
the prostitution seems, how many, just one act for that, right?
Yes.
And that carries 10 years.
Max. So, and to get racketeering, he could potentially get life. And so they would, if they can't get him on sex trafficking, they have to show at least one more interstate commerce, like, transaction of transporting.
Well, they better do it. Otherwise, this has been a big waste of taxpayer money.
But with that, I think we will wrap it up, because there's just so much left that's still to go, and
we'll do another segment.
We have to,
and I'll be a little more. I'll look at the laws a little bit better.
It's all right.
I didn't have a lot of time to prep for this. I didn't realize, like, oh my God, there's so much. But that's okay.
We underestimated this trial, and that's okay.
But coming up, we'll do more on this, but we've been talking about some exciting things. So the Karen Reed, we're definitely going to, that might be in the next one. We'll see.
I am a big time, like, fan of that trial right now. Not a fan of the prosecution or
it's just interesting.
But yes,
it's just really interesting. Yes. And for me, Mangione, we'll wait a little bit on that when it gets further into the case, but
Yes.
You know, that one.
I'm deep into conspiracy theories
Paisano.
on Karen Reed, so I would love to go there with you. And so maybe we can do that next time.
So, all
well,
right.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And if you
I hope it was informative. I feel like Morgan was, but you know, hey.
It was fun. It was a good
Everyone learned what a
conversation.
cuck was from me, so you're welcome.
And if anybody has any topic suggestions or questions, please leave them in the comments or send us an email. And just don't ask us anything specific about your personal life.
I can't give you advice.
Yes.
But if there's any topics you want us to discuss, let us know. If you thought, oh, they touched on something here, but I'm like, can you expand? Let us know.
Yes.
Things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm also open to doing like Instagram shorts, like, or reels, or like little story times.
Yeah.
If you just send me a message and say, hey, can you tell me like what you meant by X, Y, and Z? I will happily make you a short little video and tell you. But
absolutely.
I guess other than that, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.